friends, welcome to our chapter reading. We are starting a new book today called The Legend of Diamond Lil. It's got that same doggy, J.J. Tully, that we read about in the Trouble with Chickens book. So this one is also written by Doreen Cronin and illustrated by Kevin Cornell. So let's jump right in and see what this one is all about. Chapter 1, Night Shift. A week ago, I woke up in a quiet country yard that smelled like fresh air and dog pee. It was a place where fluffy young chicks felt safe, and a fellow like me could get a good night's sleep. The kind of sleep that a retired search and rescue dog ought to have earned by now. But that was before the possum showed up. Skunks, possums, rats, and raccoons, the country's full of them, and every last one of them will do things to a chicken that no soft-boiled kid should ever see. She was 3 feet from the chicken coop. How she got past me in the first place, I couldn't know at the time. I was across the yard in less time than it takes for a burp to clear the space between my mouth and my nose. She twisted her body around and showed me her sharp, dangerous smile through a hiss. In that moment, I knew she was a problem. She wasn't the first predator to take a chance in my yard, but she was the only one who had come back a second time. You can see the shadow of the possum. A couple years back, before I was here to make any kind of difference, Barb had lost a whole flock of chickens to a possum. We were out on a search and rescue drill, and I could tell something was not right. I heard her tell one of the other handlers that she had found in her yard that morning. She had been shaken up by that loss, and it wasn't going to happen again. Not as long as I was here. I pounced, and the possum ran, straight up the fence and out of sight. If I'd followed her, I would have found the real trouble that was lurking next door. Instead, it found me. Chapter 2, The Usual Suspects. I came home from my morning walk to find a chicken blindfolded and tied to a piece of rawhide. 6 months ago, I would have found this disturbing. That was before I met Dirt and Sugar, 2 popcorn-colored chicks who lived with their mom, Moosh, and a matching set of popcorn-colored chicks in the coop across the yard. There were 2 plastic cups on the floor. Neither of the cups smelled like anything I wanted near my food bowl. "Why?" I grunted. "Search and rescue practice," answered Sugar. "Why can't you do this at home?" I asked. "Mom doesn't like the smell," replied Sugar. "I don't like the way you smell either," I muttered. "The smell of the cups," said Sugar with an eye roll. I was about to kick them out when something about the blindfold Dirt was wearing caught my eye. I expected a rag or maybe a sock, but it had stitching and an elastic band. Not the kind of thing a chicken would find lying around in the yard. I gave it a sniff. It smelled like baby powder. "Where'd you get this?" I asked. "Get what?" said Dirt. "The blindfold." "Why, I reckon I don't know," said Sugar. "We should skedaddle, you hear?" said Dirt. Neither of them had ever been farther south than the compost heap. Dirt laughed so hard she fell over. That made the giggling stop, so I knocked Sugar over too. "Where'd you get that blindfold?" I repeated. "I found it," answered Sugar from the floor. "Where?" I asked. "She doesn't remember," interpreted Dirt. "Besides, it's none of your—" I moved the blindfold down her mouth. Silence at last. Chapter 3, The Scent of Worm. Moosh keeps a very close eye on all 4 of her chicks. Be a lot easier if she didn't have one eye on each side of her head. But you gotta use the eyes you were dealt. She ran in before my patience ran out, and she brought Poppy and Sweetie with her. I had Sugar under my paw, and Dirt was still tied to the rawhide. Moosh didn't bat an eyelash. "Time to go," she announced. "Rabbit pee and dead worm," said Dirt. "That's no way to talk to your mother," I said. "In the cups," she added with a heavy sigh. I took a sniff. She was right. "How did you get rabbit pee?" I asked Sugar. "There's only one way," she answered. Nothing this kid does surprises me anymore. "Tell me about the blindfold," I repeated. "Lillian gave it to me," Sugar said. "Who's Lillian?" I asked. "My new friend," answered Sugar. "The big white dog next door," explained Dirt. "Where have you been?" I hadn't been next door since Bobby, the kid who lived there, had left for college about a month ago. Bobby had a good arm and a ton of energy. I missed our daily games of fetch. What's Lillian's story? I asked. She's beautiful, said Dirt. She calls me Little Boo, said Sugar. That's nauseating, I said. That happens to be my real name, she reminded me. I hadn't used any of their real names since the first time I heard them and they annoyed me. Moose shot Sugar a look and led them all out. She left the dead worm and the rabbit pea behind. I got the better end of that deal. Chapter 4, The Price is Right. Moosh is one smart chicken. Even if Sugar didn't have the sense to know that new friend and blindfold should never show up in the same sentence, her mother should have. It was clear that I needed more information. It was also clear that I wasn't going to get it from anyone who didn't have lips. There was only one place to go. Vince the Funnel. Vince was an inside dog with a mean streak and a plastic cone wrapped around his head. My water bowl spends more time outside than he does. Vince and I weren't friends, but we had an understanding. We understood that we didn't like each other. I knocked on the doggy door at the back of the house. It opened a sliver. Yeah, answered Vince. His voice was thick and oozy, like a jelly donut on a hot dashboard. Lillian, I whispered. Never heard of her, he said. He nudged the door open a tiny bit more with his nose. There's Vince. He looks pretty grumpy. I tossed one of Barb's homemade dog biscuits. Diamond Lil, he said. Keep going, I said. He cleared his throat. Name is Lillian, but they call her Diamond Lil on account of she's so shiny. Moved in about a week ago when the folks got lonely without the kid around. Word is she keeps to herself. He stopped talking, but he didn't back away from the door. They're talking through the doggy door. Anything else? I asked. There might be, he said. He stuck his nose out of the doggy door. That was my last biscuit, I said. The doggy door closed with a snap. I heard his funnel scraping along the wall. He was gone. All right, friends, that is all for today. So join me back next time and we will pick up with chapter 5 of this book and see what happens next. See ya.